Stan Gibilisco here. I would like to discuss a little bit about emergency backup power. There was a very popular video that I made, well, popular by my standards, concerning backfeeding from a generator into your household utility wiring. Here's a basic rule of thumb that should be pretty easy to remember. Never backfeed power into your utility wiring. Never. The only way that you should connect a generator to your household utility wiring is according to the National Electric Code, which means that you must have complete isolation between your generator and the exterior utility power. So, for example, suppose that you have, here's the way I do it. Here's the way I do it. I have my computer and associated peripherals hooked up to an uninterruptible power supply, UPS, and that is plugged into the household outlet. Okay? This includes all the printers and everything. Now, suppose that power fails. What I do is I unplug the computer from the household outlet. So here's the household outlet. Here's my uninterruptible power supply. And instead, I plug it into a generator. Complete isolation. There is no way that power from this generator has anything to do with the utility wiring. There's a number of reasons for doing that. Number one, backfeeding power into the utility can cause your generator to send power back into the utility lines even when you think that it's not possible. You can have circuit breakers, and even then you can get backfeed into the utility lines. Utility workers working out on those lines near your house could get electrocuted by your generator. Another thing, when power does come back on, you do not want your utility power to conflict with your generator. It will, at the very least, blow the breaker in the generator, blow the breaker in your house, but it could be worse. Bad things happen when you backfeed. Don't ever do it. Here's the way that I do it then, is I have a complete isolated system. Now, I don't have a very big generator. It's rated at 2 kilowatts, but I never run it much more than about 1 to 1.2 kilowatts. My computer workstation only consumes a fraction of a kilowatt, so I'm not in a lot of trouble with that. If you have a bigger generator, you can run more stuff, but never ever should you backfeed anything. Here's your house. H stands for your house. Here's the wires going out to the utility pole. Maybe there's a transformer near you, maybe not. Anyway, here's your utility lines. Suppose that this power fails. By isolation, what you have down here, an AC generator. That's the schematic symbol for an AC generator. And you have its output. Well, If you have a power failure, you must do the equivalent of cutting this line. Of course, you don't want to cut that line, but you have to have total isolation before you hook your generator power into your household wiring. Now, a lot of generators have multi-kilowatt capacity, 10 kilowatts, maybe even 20 kilowatts. That'll supply most any ordinary residential house. Well, obviously you're not going to cut this line, but there is something that is the equivalent of cutting that line. It is called an isolation switch. And what it in effect is a set of knife switches. If you've ever seen those great big switches, you know, it's a set of those kinds of things, and it completely severs all of the lines leading out to the utility. If there's a power failure, the first thing to do is to sever that connection. Then fire up your generator before you connect it into your household wiring. Once the generator output has been verified as working properly, then you can plug it in to your household wiring. There's another thing about generators. A lot of them do not provide a very good sine wave. So a good generator has something called an inverter, which produces a near perfect sine wave if you get a good one. Get a good one. Never scrimp on your generator. Never scrimp. If you're going to do this, do it right. You don't want your insurance company to find out that you did it wrong after something bad happens. Because if they do, they're probably not going to cover anything that might happen that's bad, whether it has anything to do with your generator or not. The way that these generators with inverters work, you have a sine wave generator, but it's not a real good sine wave. So what it does is you have a rectifier which goes then to a filter. This is AC. The filter produces pure DC, just like you'd get from a battery, but with a lot more current available. This DC then goes to your inverter. The kind of inverter that you would use with a solar power or wind power or hydropower system if you have a standalone system that's off the grid. A good sine wave comes out of this inverter. That way you can be sure that all of your household appliances will run properly, particularly electronic devices, including computers. I bought a cheap generator to start with. It didn't have an inverter, and it just didn't do the job. My computers went nuts when I hooked that generator up to them. So I got a good one. Mine is called a Honda EU2000i. Just a little generator. It'll supply my computers and some LED light bulbs. It runs for several hours on a gallon of premium gasoline. Anyway, that's the scoop. Never, ever backfeed power into your household utility lines. I'd also like to recommend a book by David Harris. do an author search on David Harris on Amazon or Barnes & Noble and look up the NEC guide for the latest year. National Electric Code Guide. If you have any doubts about how to deal with messing around with your household utility wiring, I'd recommend, unless you're a licensed electrician, just don't do it. Hire a licensed electrician to do it. My scoop as a conservative old coot from the South Dakota wilderness is do it right, never scrimp. And always, always adhere to the codes that apply to electrical wiring in your jurisdiction. So with that, I will sign off. You can find a lot more of my videos, particularly having to do with my own books, at sciencewriter.net. Just go to that site, go down, hit videos. You'll find a lot of them. I'm just trying to instruct people a little bit better with some of my tutorials on electricity and electronics particularly. So with that, I will say so long from the American West. See you later.